Hello. How's everybody doing? They say it's important to know your audience. How many radiologists? Physicians, radiologists? Okay. How many technology folks? AI technology folks? Okay, that's helpful. That's quite helpful. My name is Gene Sarganese. I am the CEO of MaxQ. I'm also the prior CEO of imaging within Philips, also Chief Technology Officer for GE. So I come from imaging. This is my 23rd RSNA. And I want to talk to you about a subject that it's been near and dear to my heart. For the last 3 years, I've been in the startup space, and specifically in AI. So let's have a bit of a conversation here. Firstly, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, we all know that we face challenges within healthcare. We know that we're still killing 250,000 people. So we all know there's a need for change within healthcare. I have been a believer my entire career that technology is a means to delivering better care. And if you look at the history of evolution, or I should say innovation in healthcare, that's indeed been the case. So I stand in front of you today and I was trying to decide what to talk about. Well, can I talk about multi-layer neural nets? Can I talk about our technology within a MaxQ company? I could do that. But to me, actually technology is really not the question. Machine learning, AI is here to stay. It's having a profound effect on everything we do. The question is, why not in healthcare? Why has it been slow in healthcare? What stands in our way? The second thing I thought about when I was preparing this presentation is the radiologists and our customers looking at all of this and saying, okay, what's it all mean? And there's a lot of confusion. So I'm actually going to put some questions up that I think you should ask me and my competitors and the industry. So if it's not a technology question, then what is it? Here's some of the real questions, I think. AI and machine learning is a great piece of technology, but if it's solving a problem that's not relevant to us, it's simply not important. So the first question you should ask yourself as you're looking at our solutions is, do they meet an unmet clinical need? The second is, do they really create value in imaging? We are a radiology community. Do we leverage the images in a way that's bringing value beyond what we do today? Is it integrated? Does it create an economic return? How do you pay for it? Can I trust the company that I'm buying from, and will they be here in 6 months? These are pretty good questions. I'm going to try and answer some of them for you. First, a comment on unlocking the full value of imaging, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but the one thing we do know is that imaging provides the context for disease. It provides the basis for most diagnoses, yet in the context of that diagnosis, the only thing that's considered is a radiology report. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity to consider the imaging, the richness of imaging, concurrently with the surrounding patient data. So if you look at what it takes to unlock medical imaging, I think it's 3 points. One is, it is different, and the way we apply it in healthcare is different. And it is important to understand the deep clinical problem and collaborate with the physicians in the world to impart as much knowledge as we can. And not simply do unsupervised learning because it takes a long time to do that. But the other is to concurrently consider the imaging data along with the surrounding patient data. And if you were to ask me where radiology will be in 20 years, I would say it would be a diagnostic function and not just a function that interprets images. So it would be a combination of the richness of imaging plus the surrounding patient data. And these need to be generalized solutions, and they're not always. So what's a relevant clinical problem to talk about? Stroke is a great one. By 2030, we'll spend $240 billion in the United States. There'll be 3.4 million cases, and it's the number 5 cause of, or second leading cause of death in the world. So clearly an opportunity. So I wanted to show you some images and just take you through some cases very quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. The first question is there a bleed present on this image? And the answer is there is. These are small, subtle, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm alone in the ER trying to decide what to do with this patient. And essentially, we are struggling, if you will, to make these types of decisions. In reality, AI can provide this support. I believe that this is not certainly replacing radiologists. This is augmenting physicians and bringing expertise to the bedside. Did everybody see where that bleed was? Bleed or no bleed? And this is what you'll see. And you guys, for the radiologists in the room, you've seen these types of cases. They're noisy, they're challenging. And these are the types of problems that we can solve and support. Again, noisy, artifact-based images. And the last slide. So I asked you earlier about what are the questions surrounding this concept of an unmet clinical need. Is it, and this is really what I'm bringing you. So these are the types of questions I think you should be asking us, quite frankly. And I've had a lot of people walk up to me and say, what's your sensitivity? What's your specificity? What are the numbers? And the reality is that's somewhat of a complicated question. It can be answered with a simple number. But the reality is, if you look at the underlying data, the source of truth, the type of enrichment, every data set that we look at, every test set that we work on is an enriched data set. So there's more bleeds than are representative in the world at large. And then the types of bleeds you choose to incorporate into your test set and validation set has a very big impact on the numbers themselves. So the more stringent you are and the more you enrich your data set, the more challenging it is. So you can, to some degree, come up with numbers that vary and are less meaningful. So one of the challenges I think we face as a society, radiology, is how we create a set of standards that we can actually benchmark relative to one another. Is the test set generalized, and will it work for in any location at any time? Only then should you ask the question of what is its performance? But most importantly, if you're trying to make a decision, I think the best thing to do is to have whoever is producing a product come to your site, process a bunch of images for you, and let your physicians decide. Integration into workflow. The philosophy we've taken is that there has to be zero extra effort to get answers. And if there is an extra effort, really it's not going to work for all of you. So is it fully integrated into PACS? Can I see the results anywhere? How many steps? Is there steps? Do I have to initiate the analysis, or is it done in the background? What's the format? What's the output? How much time do I spend? These are important questions that you need to ask all of us as you're making decisions in terms of who to partner with. Again, our approach within MaxQ has been no steps at all. We actually intercept images in the background, process them, and then post those results to the PAC, so you have to go nowhere else and you have to push no buttons in order to get the answers that we're providing. This is just a picture of an ecosystem, if you will, and this is actually the area that we're working is intracranial hemorrhage detection. And there's a family of applications here that one is approved, and that is the intracranial hemorrhage detection and prioritization application is approved. The other two are not. But this is an example of how these would fit together. The first question of this group of images, is there a suspected hemorrhage? To rule that out is helpful. It applies the right skills in the right place. If it's not ruled out, can I find a hemorrhage? Can I detect it? Can I inform? And then the last one here is to annotate and provide insight on site. The other question around economics, the question is, how do you pay for this? Are we solving a real economic problem? The first question I'd ask you is are we delivering productivity, which is really very important in healthcare, or are we tapping into a different source of money? And I contend that there's a lot of waste within healthcare, there's a lot of misdiagnoses within healthcare, and there's a tremendous opportunity to actually tap into a new source of money, and that's based on quality, accuracy, and projecting expertise into areas that they are not today. But in any event, delivering productivity, is it greater throughput, less stress, easier to read? But then the real big question is, can I actually reduce overall population costs? And stroke is a great example. Today in community hospitals, people are not getting aggressive treatment in stroke. And in reality, most malpractice in stroke is associated with lack of treatment and not mistreatment. So people are not being treated. There's a Kaiser study that proved that when you project expertise into the community hospital, you increase the rate of treatment by 73%. And then if you go into other parts of the world where we don't have enough physicians, they simply aren't present, those people are not receiving the proper level of care. And to me, it's a tremendous opportunity. Now the question is, can we afford it? Is there money to tap into? Can we make a difference? As I said earlier, 3.4 million stroke victims, $240 billion in the U.S. alone. If you just take one patient per hospital in the United States and in the CE mark countries, which is about 13,000 hospitals, and I realize that there's a lot of other patients in the world, but just take that population and deflect one patient from long-term care to wellness. That's all. In an acute care setting, they present with a stroke, they're treated more aggressively. Kaiser said they can treat almost twice the number of patients with experts in the room. We treat more people, deflect one person. That's $2 billion a year savings. $2 billion a year. Those are the kind of problems that we like to solve. Those are the kind of problems we should solve together. Here's the last question. Can I trust the company? Will they be there in 6 months or a year? And for those who were here last year, there was a very different population in this part. For example, we did not have a booth last year, now we have a booth. But the question is, who's going to be here in 6 months? And I think you should ask these questions. Is it a proven trusted partner? Do they have service infrastructure? Is there an upgrade path? Do you get improvements over time based on continuous learning? Is it standalone? Is it part of an ecosystem? Is it integrated? And do I have a trusted point of contact? So I'm going to close. I've just given you a lot to think about. I've answered some questions. Mostly I've asked the questions. Like I said, I could have stood up here and talked about technology. The technology is remarkable. I could have talked about our applications. But what I wanted to talk to you about was this challenge we face, which is, what do we do? Where do we go? I can tell you our approach as MaxQ. Number one is that we're in the business of augmenting physicians. We're in the business of projecting expertise, improving expertise in places where it doesn't exist, where there's not enough physicians, where people need help 3 o'clock in the morning. We are absolutely committed to no clicks, no workstations, no knobs, no buttons, no adjustments. The answers just come through. It is answers, not analysis. The third thing is the concept of redefining the diagnoses patients. And I contend that this is a challenge that we face as a radiology community. Today we read images. Tomorrow we should be interpreting and diagnosing patients. And AI actually is a remarkably powerful tool that can consider the complexity of a full 3D image plus the surrounding patient data. And to me, that is the power of AI in healthcare, and it is the direction that we should be going in terms of diagnoses. So is this a threat to radiology? I think it's a tremendous opportunity, to be honest with you, and it's an opportunity to evolve from simply reading images to owning and diagnosing patients. The last thing is, I think we need to focus on solving real hard clinical and economic problems so that people can afford these goods and services, and we can solve this problem of the 2 billion people in the world who simply don't have access to the most basic care. Those are my thoughts. No convolutional neural nets, no data set size, no specs, and no sensitivity and specificity. Just some questions to make you think about how the space is evolving. Make you think about what you should demand from the people that are presenting here and selling across the RSNA. I think we're at a remarkable time in healthcare and in radiology. And now is the time, I think, to embrace this technology. I chose to. I left a rather large role, and now I'm running a startup, which is a shock to my system and psyche, but nonetheless, it is a remarkable opportunity that we face today. So I thank you all for your attention and your attendance. Any questions? Anyone have any questions they may want to ask? I don't know how much time we have. I have 7 minutes. You can go with that 7 minutes and get a cup of coffee, or you can ask me some questions. Any thoughts? All right, well, I'll be here for at least 7 more minutes if anyone would like to talk. Thank you.